Hey, it's Dr. O'Gwyn with Embody Performance and Recovery. I have made videos on how to stretch for acute low back pain, muscle spasms, but a lot of them involve somebody getting on the floor, their hands and their knees, or doing certain stretches on the floor. And I sometimes have people that tell me that's not accessible for me. My back is so locked up, I don't want to get on the floor because I feel like it may be hard for me to get back up. So I wanted to make this video for people that want to do some form of therapy stretch during acute low back pain. And I want to specify what that means exactly. So acute low back pain is that first week, maybe 2 weeks, but really that first week or even the first few days when there's muscle guarding and muscle spasming. When the muscles are guarded or spasmed, it's not that the muscles are oh so just tight and they need a big stretch. It's usually more that they are heavily engaged and it's more of this reflexive nervous system guarding protective mechanism. So what you're going to want to do is be very gentle with the stretch. You're not trying to see how far you can stretch, but how relaxed you can be and do very gentle movements during the stretch. Another thing to keep in mind, so I'm going to start with a hip stretch because you don't always want to stretch directly where the pain is. And so if your pain is right there in your low back, you may not always want to just stretch that area. Sometimes it's better stretch around the area first. And so a nice seated stretch that you can do, let's say you're in a chair, a box like this, or a bench. If you can, bring your ankle up to a knee and then somewhat get tall. Now, one thing you could do is from here, go back and forth. I'm kind of slouched and now I'm kind of tall. You're doing two things when you do this. As you get taller and bring your chest up, you'll feel a bigger stretch in the back of the hip. But as you slouch, you're actually rounding your spine. So you're kind of getting a good stretch in the spine. You're rounding that spine. And then we're going to come back up. Now we're getting more of a stretch in the hip. And this is what you're going for, gentle, subtle movements, slow, controlled movements to try to get rid of that reflexive muscle spasm. So, of course, you would want to do both sides and spend as much time doing that as you think you need. And I'm going to do this side here just so you can kind of see. I am slouched, and now I am sitting up tall, really feeling the stretch in the back of the hip with this one, then maybe a little bit more in the spine with this one here. So these are good. One final thing, you can also take the knee and play with different angles here. So if I bring this knee up a little closer, much bigger stretch in the back of the hip, and that may feel good. But I really want to let you know you're not going for a big stretch. You're going for a relaxed, gentle stretch that feels comfortable for you. And you could also, just without that hip up, gently round the spine by bringing those arms up here, and then maybe extending the spine by getting really tall. Round the spine and extend the spine. Some other ranges that work really well to stretch the spine are side bending. So you could bring one arm overhead, and I'm as if I'm going to jut this rib cage out here, and then this one here. And a big thing is that back and forth. I'm just, because half of this is just your brain trying to get better body awareness through the muscles. And so it could look something like this. If you want to go deeper, you could reach taller. If it feels good and nothing feels like it's going to reflexively spasm on you, then you could go a little bit deeper in there. So we've talked about what I call flexion and extension. That's this flexion. I don't call it that. That's just what it's called. Got the flexion and then the extension. You get the side bending, and then one final direction that you can do is rotation, and that rotation might look something like this here. Looking behind you. Not how far you can go, it's what's comfortable for you to feel like it's loosening it up. And again, notice how I go back and forth. I'm not just holding it there, trying to push past anything. I'm just being very gentle with that stretch there. Now, stretching the front of the hips is really good too. This one, you're gonna have to stand up in some way. There's a couple ways to do this. So one thing that you could do is put one foot in front of the other. Maybe you've got a wall that you're holding on to here. In the leg that's back, that's the one you're trying to push through and get that front of that hip there. And so against the wall, getting in there. And again, this is more in the hips, right there. If you feel comfortable with just kneeling, I know I said I'm making this video for somebody who doesn't want to get on the floor, but if you're like, it's accessible for me to kneel because I can push myself back up, another option is to kneel here. You may even kneel and then push forward and then bring that arm overhead. This one's fantastic. And then, of course, don't forget you're going to want to do both sides. So there are a few ideas for some very gentle movements to just try to relax reflexive muscle spasms in acute low back pain.